So I have no idea what happened to the original recording of this video, but I was recording about the FGC68 model, and that I made adapters for it that that can use TMC magazines and things like that. And this one would be sliding inside of the TPX lower, let's say, that takes the TPX magazines. So that would take TPX magazines or Zeta Max or the 7 round magazines. The idea back then was that it would not be possible to make an, let's say, direct mag well underneath there for different magazines, because it would not line up, and then I have to change everything. But really strange, when I was recording that video I noticed like that was not really the case. I will still make the point in case you have, let's say, the TPX lower edition. Kind of the fun idea about it is you can have your marker, and let's say you're playing yourself with TPX magazines, and then you need you play with teammates that maybe use TMC magazines or T15 magazines, and let's assume they use roundball in that, in the last case for the T15. Then you can bring this adapter with you, and then you can change out magazines with them. Oh, this is a TPX one, that's why. That's why it doesn't on the go in. They look really the same. And then you can use their magazines. And let's go really extreme and say, okay, then also a teammate with T15. And then you can use their magazines. Of course, this got limitations. It may be a little bit less reliable. I did test it. It should feed fine, but of course the magazine stops right here and it needs to push up, let's say, 5 more rounds, so that is more than it's designed to do. So it may be less reliable, of course, than having direct feeding in the chamber magazine to chamber feeding system. But yeah, well, I was recording that video and I was kind of looking inside, and I was realizing like I never really take a really close look to it, to the design, and it is possible to make on lower for the platform. You would not really say, because you see the TPX magazine is like this, and when I put this one right there, it sticks out. But to be fair, it's not that much. And when I was realizing that, then I was thinking like, okay, it will sacrifice a little bit from the trigger guard, of course, because you got the trigger guard right here, and this one got a smaller trigger guard. You can see you sacrifice a little bit for the trigger guard size, but unless you have really thick fingers or maybe a thick winter glove, it should be still fine. You got still room there. This is the TMC edition, and you can see you got still room to move your finger before you start hitting the trigger. So it should be fine for most people, I think. And when I was realizing that, an entire possibility was opening for me, like, oh, I can do so much with this platform right now. And it was a lot of work to do those, but at the same time, the thing was for me, and that's also why I made these to begin with, was I do like it that I have a paintball version of the FGC9, but 12 rounds are so, it's not much with paintball. It's really low. It's also for magfed only paintball games, 12 rounds I find it way too low. Many people have 20 rounds, so they outshoot you so easily with that. And also when you would couple the magazine, so you got 20 and 20 again, it's really fast to reload. It's so much better than have the 12 rounds, and then you can couple those magazines, okay, but it's still very low. So I did really like the idea of having a high capacity magazine in there, in a sense for, let's say, paintball. Then of course it's not really an FGC9 anymore to look at, but at the same time it kinda got the capacity back again of the FGC9, so that's nice. And at the same time it's paintball, so and with all the customization you can go really far, and to the point it doesn't really look at as an FGC9 anyway, so and for some people it doesn't matter if it looks like that one or not. But it's based on it. But yeah, it's really nice, and yeah, it does work. With the TMC edition, it's all the upper part, the shroud and the buttstock stays the same. It's just the normal TMC edition. Only the lower you need to reprint. So just remove the three bolts and basically can swap it out if you have two of them, and make two of the lowers. The same goes basically for the Dmag as well. If you want, you can also use that edition, and for the T15 as well. When you do that, then you do need to use only roundball. Then you can use that lower that is, let's say, swappable with the original upper that's originally made for the TPX. But for the Dmag and the T15 there's also a special edition that's an upper and lower edition. This means that in case you already have this, you have to reprint that model, the upper and the lower again. But what that will make makes possible, is that you can, in case you also have the TCR internals, or let's say some aftermarket breech block that got the shape, the shapeadectal breech block and bolt, things like that. If you have that, then you can use the direct feeding to the breech block with those magazines. I mean, for the TMC magazine that was not possible. This got everything to do with the fact that the follower is not sticking out too much. So there was not enough of the follower pushing out of the magazine to push inside of the breech. If you compare that with a TPX magazine, even without me pressing that button, you can see that the TPX magazine sticks out way higher, and that's that the TMC just cannot get high enough. Then you also have to keep a factor in that you need an activator thing right there and a gap for that thing. That did not work out, so there's only the lower edition. At the same time it's also kind of a bonus in a sense, because then you can still keep the original upper, things like that. You don't have to change anything, you can just remove those bolts and change out the lower and you're done. In case you already have that edition, then that's a nice bonus point, let's say. But in case of the T15 magazine, it sticks out just 1 millimeter, but that's enough. And the way how this is designed, it just matches up better with the breech block of the TPX to kind of go direct feeding. And the same goes for the Dmags. So the Dmags, you got the generation 1 Dmags. They are kind of referred as shampoo bottles. They feel like, well, it's soft plastic on the outside. You can squeeze them. It's strange. They were my first magfed magazines, so I'm grateful for that. It kind of introduced me to the game, but they are really odd, to be honest. I don't like the MCS stuff, to be honest. These are the generation 2. Those work as well in the lowers, so they are tested with the Gen 1s, the Gen 2s, and the helix mags. They all referred to as the Dmag helix mags thing. I want to keep one note, and I hope it's not getting too confusing. When you have just the lower edition of the Dmag, there will be a D shape in the lower. Don't get confused and think that now you can use let's say first strike rounds with that lower and the normal TPX upper edition of this marker. That shape is made because the follower in the magazines are shaped in a D shape. So if I would make that round, it would not be able to push out of the magazine, and it would give you a lot of issues. So that's why I made it in D shape, so don't get confused by that, but it will be noted in the downloads. You can see that, and then it should be clear that that's the case. Also, I did not make a Dmag edition of this because after I discovered that I can make lowers that can take the magazines, this was kinda not really that interesting anymore. That was really just a desperate attempt for me to kind of have like, should I play like that and still can I have more capacity? So that was the thing with that. The trigger and the safety, the grip, that stays the same. With the lowers, for the, let's say, the big, normal larger caliber, let's say rifle shaped magazines, I did have to sacrifice the button on the front. That was not possible to do anymore without really making this really bulky and things like that. So I opted to just remove that button, so it kind of keeps the same shape, and then it's basically like an AR instead of the button, but it's kind of at the same position. You got your trigger right here, and then you can move your finger up and you got the button. But in case of instead of an AR, it's like the FGC9. It's a long bar that you can press and then release the magazine. You can see for my doing, it's totally different design of let's say mag catch. Normally I got more like the AK or the G, let's say H and K, the mag pedal right here. But I wanted to have this style because it makes more sense, and what this tries to represent as a marker. So this model I've really test fired, the TMC one. The other ones, I have to be honest with you, I've only made small test pieces and a couple of them, because that's a lot of work to make that right, to give the right spacing, so the mag head is not sticking out too much or too low, things like that. So it should work, but I cannot be printing all those editions and things like that. But it should all line up right now with all those editions that are there. The next question is probably, will there also be an die magazine or the Planet Eclipse one? I'm not sure, and I've said that of course before, but the thing with it is those are feeding, for all intents and purposes, they are really, the die magazine at least looks a little bit like Dmag, or you can say all the way around. I don't know who was first, but the thing is, let's say the Dmag is feeding at the front of the magazine, like the T15 magazine also does, and the TMC also. The die magazine will feed from the back, and that's kind of strange in the sense because all the magazines don't do that. So it will mean that the magazine needs to sit more forward than normal, and that will probably cause some things that the things need to shift, but at the same time it may be possible to do it without causing too much issue. But then it looks to be more like a round ball thing. and again it is only if it is really that popular and on request that people really want that to happen. And also I need to be able to borrow the Plant Eclipse magazine, because the thing with making those type of magazine adapters, it's a lot of work, especially how more editions there are from one magazine platform. I need to test it all with them, because the same with the T15 one. I got the magazine adapter working for the edition 1, and then I was testing it on the version 2. Then I was testing it with the 1, and it doesn't really want to lock. Then I get it to work with this, and then it's out of spec with this one. So you need to find the correct tolerances so it works for both. Then you can kind of go with this one, and you got 3 editions you need to work with. Then of course with the one of the Die magazine, you got the Die magazine, of course, that is a brand. And then you got Plant Eclipse, that works on the same mackerel, but what are the tolerances in between of them? I have no idea. And then you got the Plant Eclipse follower that can go inside of the Die magazine. So yeah, it is kind of a lot. And if it is your own magazine, you got time and you are familiar with the platform to work on it. But the same for me with the T15s, those have to go back to the original owner. I don't really work a lot with those, so it took me also some time to figure out that I did kind of make a small mistake with those adapters in the past. Those are now resolved with the generation 2 models that this mackerel is part of. But yeah, that is one thing. The installation video of how to install this the simple but new design of the Mac release part, I will do that in a separate video, because this is already getting quite long, and this is probably more an introduction video for you guys, that you know this is available right now. You can download it. You don't have to wait for it. I already published it. It's all on printables. That's also maybe a good point to note, to point that out. I don't comment, I don't upload to Thingiverse anymore. It's over. I don't use it anymore. The same for Cults 3D for the free files. I do use it for the paid files for this moment. There are some things that I don't like about the platform in that regards, but at the same time you have noticed that I take a long time to get my website going, and I got so much things on my head and I don't really want to work on a website. So I decided, like, okay, let's use the platform for now so you guys can download things. And with that said, not everything is already uploaded. Like the thing on the back, that's not uploaded yet. I will make a video and big announcement when that is uploaded. It should not be too long, because I want to have that thing launched and ready. But those can be found there, but with parts that's relevant to that are paid downloads, you can find it in a link below that goes to a page on my website that's more clear to view, and that will direct you to the Cults 3D website, and then you can buy it and download it, things like that. But for all the free parts, those are on printables, and I upload on a regular basis on there. So if you are not familiar with that platform and that I moved to that platform, go there, then you can find a lot of things that I upload there. But yeah, that's it for now, and see you guys the next time. The next time? No, let's keep it there. Oh, and of course there's one thing I forgot to mention. Like a little bit like this system, that it would push 5 balls up. above the magazine in order to feed it. Then you have to, let's say, just the lowers that will hold the magazine without the upper and lower edition. Then there's still one paintball in most of cases, I guess all cases, or let's say 2 paintball pushed up. One can feed in the chamber and be shot away, but the last round cannot be shot. So there is still that little part inside. I don't think you can see it, but there's a little sliding piece that is familiar with my designs is in there. That's to prevent the paintball from falling. When you're, let's say, you're shooting all your, let's say it's a fresh magazine, an empty chamber. You can shoot 19 shots out of your 20 round magazine at the first time. Then you have to reload. You take in fresh magazine in your 20 rounds and insert that one. Then you can shoot 20 rounds. But then again, one paintball will stay inside. You can just remove the magazine and the paintball will stay inside. No matter, you can shoot and dry fire, that paintball should not be able to be hit by the bolt unless you start to do things like this. Then yeah, it can roll down in the breech and you can shoot. And if you do maybe things like this and move it around, you may can accidentally bounce it up and crack it and things like that. So try not to do that, because that's just a mess. In case you really don't want that feature and say like, I rather have just that one ball just drop and don't have that thing there, I don't like to install it or something like that, that's also possible. But then every time you do reload, you will lose that one ball. So you technically just have a 90 rounder magazine instead of a 20 rounder. But that's possible if you like. Installation videos about that part is a separate video that I already made in the past. But you can see that when you are going to the files. And yeah, hopefully that helps.